Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Leah McTiernan, currently GVP of PreSales at DocuSign. And I'm excited to take everyone home today. I'll be your host for our session on how to find and execute your leadership style. I've had the good fortune of being in software for over 25 years and pre-sales leadership roles for over 12. And I know we're going to have a great conversation today about this with our other panelists as well. For the agenda, we're going to kick off with a panelist discussion, and I'm joined by both Kevin and Nikhil. And then we're going to go into some Q&A, and then we'll close with breakout sessions. And just kind of moving into our first question, I wanted to share some insights that I've learned, especially early on as a new leader for myself. And I would say this is a little part Simon Sinek and part mentors that I've had in my life who are much more experienced in leadership than I was at the time. But they gave me some great advice that I often think back on and view as very foundational to building your leadership style. And it all starts with the ability to build trust with your team. Trust is the foundation you really truly do build upon. And, it's driven by the ability to do you, right? Not someone that you read about in a book. And I think elements that go with this are communication. But the number one thing I would share that I feel has really helped me is, and it seems small, but honestly, it's not, is consistency. And to be consistent and do what you say you're going to do. Show up on one-on-ones, have team meetings. If you tell someone on your team you're going to escalate or you're going to follow up on something, you actually do it and close that loop. And then over time, the daily practice of all those little small things really does build a foundation of trust between a team and a leader and can really help shape your culture for your organization. So I'd love to hear from a couple other great leaders on this. Kevin, maybe I'll start with you. Can you share with the group, our audience today, how you built trust, culture, and followership within your teams?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Leah. So happy to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Cox. I lead our global solutions specialist team at Silver4. We're a cybersecurity company. We build tools and software to help our customers save from bad actors and risks out there and protect their assets. I've got about 15 years of experience leading teams in both the public and private sector. And I can tell you really what is so important to me in building trust is to invest time into others. I think as an early leader, I was focused on KPIs and metrics and getting the job done, which of course we're leaders, we're supposed to do that. But it's so important to invest time in your team members, your peers, the folks that you work with. Take time to learn about them as people and actually learn it personally. Who are they? What do they care about? What are their hobbies, their kids, the things that energize them on a professional level? What's their career journey been like so far? Where do they want to go? What energizes them and what drains them? And, as you're understanding their unique skills and their talents and their hopes, actually do something with that knowledge, right? Remember the details of what's important to people outside of work. Check in, follow up, remember the name of their partner or their spouse or their loved ones whenever you're engaging with them. Hey, what did you and Joe do this weekend? How were things? And I love to connect people with other people in a way that benefits them. So let's say that Chris says, Kevin, I'd love to start a pre-sales collective meetup in my hometown, but I just don't know where to start. I'd say, hey, you know what? I've got this friend, Nikhil. He does it all the time. He's amazing. And I'd love to put the two of you together. You can learn so much from each other. And so I think in that way, again, understanding what drives people and then using that knowledge to help benefit them, that builds trust. It makes people feel seen, right? And it builds that culture of supporting one another. So that's my tip that I'm going to lead off with.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I love that. And I'll maybe round that out a little bit too, because I think all of what you shared is spot on, and some of that you can cultivate through conversations. As you were talking through that, it reminded me of actually a leader that I work with today that is just fantastic about, she's created this onboarding survey, and part of it is how do you like to be recognized? Because some people lean more, introverted, some lean more extroverted, and she asks a lot of questions about recognition, motivation, and it's really interesting to see, like, some people are dying for that opportunity to present in all hands or get on stage, and other people may be motivated by different things and want to be recognized in different ways. And if you can establish and understand that connection with your employees early on, it just makes for that much better of a relationship. So
Makes
that's fantastic.
such a great relationship, and it's a
Yeah,
relationship that continues to pay off and pay dividends.
absolutely. All right, Nikhil, we'd love to hear from you on this one. Uh-oh, is he on?
Unmuted now.
Okay, we can hear you now. Yeah, great.
Hey everyone, my name is Nikhil. I'm based in Berlin. I've been in pre-sales for 8 years now. 12 years ago, or at 8 years ago, I moved into pre-sales. And for the 12 years prior to that, I was working in technology development. And Netflix actually made me want to move to pre-sales, not watching Netflix, but actually working with them as a customer. And what I realized was that I wanted to work with people who use the technology that I was helping develop. And so the curiosity working with customers, that drove me to pre-sales. And then in pre-sales, I actually learned that empathy is, how powerful empathy is in a business context. And these three things combined, wanting to work with customers, with the curiosity, that empathy, that kind of led me to a path of leadership. And I've been a manager for 2.5 years now. Now, as a manager, on this panel, I could probably provide the perspective of someone who's relatively new to management, right? You're not gonna know on day one what it is you're trying to solve for. But very quickly, I realized that what I want to build is a culture of commitment and not compliance. And I'll repeat that: commitment and not compliance. And my team grew from 3 to 7 within 6 months.
Wow.
When we were 3, I knew what that team needed, more or less, because I came out of that team, right? We were focused on one territory, Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. And I had been speaking to the people on my team pretty much every day. When we were 7, I didn't know what this team's identity was. We didn't know what we dealt with Europe, Middle East, and Africa and Asia, a very large territory. So we came together, and this is not something I had to solve by myself. In fact, it was better not solved by myself, right? We came together and we said, who are we as a team? And then we said, out of that process came 3 things. One, that, we focus on delivering value, not just talking about value selling and things like that, but really focus on the practice of delivering value. We focus on improving processes, and then we focus on innovation, right? And so out of this, basically, I just derived what I needed to do out of these 3 things. So the North Star goal was, again, commitment, not compliance. So what does that mean, right? So value selling, I don't want to go into too much detail right now, but I spent a lot of time coaching. This is something that I care deeply about. And so coaching and a practice of, or the culture of practice. We go from meeting to meeting and we just expect it to perform miracles, but actually working on that, on the practice part, that is something that we worked on heavily. The commitment to fair process leadership. For me, this is a very important style of leadership. This is something I learned at a wonderful course at INSEAD. I can recommend that. If anyone has questions, please come to me. I'm happy to talk about that. And one-on-ones, one of the things that we discovered, we saw, we had a lot of meetings, we had a lot of activities, etc. Those one-on-ones are sacrosanct. We made sure that all the status updates, etc., things like that were done asynchronously, because there's a much better way of spending your one-on-ones. I would have the team lead the agenda on the one-on-ones, and then, I would, of course, I would have some topics for them. And then career session. Kevin touched upon this as well. The Alliance is a book by Reid Hoffman and a couple of other authors. Wonderful philosophy. We all know that this is not, whatever job we are in is not going to be our last job. How is this job preparing you for the rest of your career, or at least for the next steps? So I'll stop over there, but these are some of the things that really helped me.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic insights. And one thing I'll pick up on that you shared was around values. And, I know at DocuSign, especially early on, I've been here, leading pre-sales for 9+ years now. And we needed to really have strong values and understand, what does it take to be successful, like in this team, in this organization. And so I think it's a for all the leaders out there, identifying who you are, back to what Kevin was saying, what motivates you, but what does it take to be successful? And obviously that, aligns into career growth as well, is really important. But being able to rally your team behind something is as well. And I'll share, for example, at DocuSign, we have 3 pillars of values. One is, GSD. Hopefully everyone can figure out what that is. The other is positive attitude. If you have a positive attitude and you're willing to work hard, you can almost always be successful. But the third part is team, and team first, and team collaboration. So again, every organization is different. Every leader has their own style, but thinking about the team that you lead, the business that you're in, and being able to define that and share that is incredibly important. So love that. Thank you. Okay, Kevin. Nikhil started to get into some of this, but I'd love to hear from you just a little bit more of like how you run your day-to-day operations, and a little bit more brass tacks. Like, what do you recommend for one-on-one schedules, team meetings? How do you look at delegating decisions? And if you could share, dry running, Nikhil was talking about dry running coaching. Love to get your perspective, and you can kind of take that where you want, but love to hear more from you on that.
I'll take a couple of them for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that Nikhil touched on and actually really agree with is to the degree that we can coordinate one-on-one topics, team meeting topics asynchronously. Absolutely. If maybe it's a Google Doc, maybe it's some other tool, but capturing what are our discussion topics going to be. You and I we have a one-on-one coming up. What's top of mind for you? What are concerns? Let's get that out on paper so that we can get into those conversations and we can make them meaningful and impactful. I really like to do that with my teams as well during my team meetings. So, pre-populate. I like to look ahead and look back. So, what are your major focus for the upcoming week? Maybe it's customers, accounts, maybe it's projects, things of that nature. What are some areas where you need assistance with? What are maybe some blockers or something, right? And what are other topics of concern? And I love to, have the team plug in their information into that document ahead of time. And when we're using those team meetings, look, I want to create a culture of transparency across my team. I want them to feel the ability to share. So we're kind of breaking down those information silos, right? Again, if Nikhil is having a challenge, then I want Chris to see that. Maybe Chris knows something, right? Maybe he can help with that. So just facilitating those types of team meetings and team engagements, and then going through and exploring, and when we're having those conversations, my kind of book recommendation for new leaders is Amy Edmondson's The Fearless Organization. She does work on psychological safety in teams. And it's really important for me to create an environment where my team members can say, you know what, I can be successful being just who I am, right? I can be successful and arrive being me. And so, again, opening up and leveraging that tactically, here's what's going on for the week ahead, but also creating that that avenue for open conversations amongst the team. I'm struggling with this. I'm having challenges. Here are ideas, etc. So that again, we're getting the job done tactically, but we're also building up that culture of transparency and communication amongst our team members. And then I'll kind of add on to the additional level of complexity as you. Of course, so many of us are still remote. So you have remote team members. We're not having those in-office interactions that we used to. An additional dynamic is if you do have a global team and you have team members from not only different locations, but geographies, countries, regions, really making sure that information flows across that team is so critical. And so again, operationally, one-on-ones, team meetings, those are ways to get the job done, but they also facilitate that culture building and that team building and helping to thread that common narrative across the organization.
Oh, those are great insights. And Nikhil, we know you're joining us right now from Germany. I'm going to guess it's 10 o'clock there?
No, it's
9?
20 minutes past 8. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. The clock's the other way. Is there anything you want to add to this? I know you started to share some great insights already, but just in terms of like, how to best run day-to-day operations with your team.
Yeah, absolutely. This is evolving constantly, right? I think one of the things that I took great inspiration from when I was at Contentful was our values as well. Now, one of the things one notices is that the company has espoused values, and then because people come from a variety of different backgrounds, from various different companies, at some point, if you don't really take care of holding those values as the leader of a team, then it's very easy for other values to kind of come in, right? Or those your company values to be diluted. And I think as a manager, it is so those values are what actually have attracted various people to your company, and it is your duty to examine those and make sure that the team lives those values too. And this is how you retain talent. This is also how you attract new talent. For me, there were 3 things that were really important. So what is it that my team wants? What is it that I want them to know about what is important to me? And number 3, who can help me ensure we have this culture? So I'm purely tactically, I'm a big fan of anonymous polls, right? Because I talked earlier about, we question processes, we constantly re-examine them. If everyone's responses are very obvious, they may not be telling me, especially when this team was kind of coming together. I felt that maybe they wouldn't have the psychological safety. So I said, and I just put out a whole bunch of anonymous polls, and they gave me some good feedback. And then over time, we built this trust, and so we built practices together. And this ties back to the fair process leadership, which is really about engaging the team, about having discussion, fostering that kind of discussion. Then you decide, and then you move on, and then you re-examine. So this was something that helped us a lot as a team. I said I care deeply about coaching and practice, and we made time for this. And they knew that for me, this was something that was important. Why? Because this helped them succeed. As a pre-sales leader, I see less value in reviewing calls and then giving people feedback and scores and things like that.
Mhm.
I want to coach them before the fact so that they are prepared. I want to make sure that they have the time to actually get good at that craft, to have that confidence when they go into meetings. So, and as far as the delegation, I think one of my jobs is to create a leadership pipeline as well, right? And I think one of the simplest things is, I go on vacation and my boss doesn't want to handle the day-to-day of my team. So this was something that I opened up early on to people on my team. Say, hey, someone want to take over some admin stuff for me while I'm gone. And there's the people with whose interest and talent kind of bubbles up to the surface. Where I came back from vacation and said, oh yeah, maybe I could have done it. Maybe I can do things differently. That person showed me how. That gives them that confidence as well.
No, that's great. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, I've kind of honed, since you kind of closed on delegation, I feel like I've tried hard to hone a delegation formula for myself that I'll share. That's a little, it kind of has three pillars to it. Pillar one is if something comes in that's more tactical or I feel like I can get it done in a matter of minutes, I just try to knock it out. Kind of pillar two is something, I'm asked to do something and it's just to your point, Akil, like it's a great opportunity for me to delegate to someone else for either time management or as an opportunity to test someone else on the team as a growth opportunity. And then kind of pillar three is, something that, you need to work on that is more strategic in nature or is going to take thought, and that sometimes will go onto the to-do list or, be filed as a larger project to work on. So all great insights. Okay, just a couple more questions. Nikhil, maybe we'll stick with you. I think this, everyone always wants to know, what are the most important metrics that you use to gauge the effectiveness and impact of your team? So love to hear from you if you have like a top 2 or 3 that you look at to gauge the impact of your team.
Yeah, I can really get lost in Salesforce charts and BI
I
charts
know we all
because
can. We all can.
I actually love that stuff. But honestly, there are 3 things that really matter to me, and plus one, which is not quite a metric, but it's a very important source of information for me. So the deal related things are quota attainment, of course, because so much of our compensation and so much is tied up with that.
Yeah.
Number 2, average contract value, so ACV, ARR, whatever it is that your company uses. So basically, I want to see, is that average deal size going up over time, right? And the other thing is what we call opportunity health, right? This is, I mean, I could talk about deal duration and all that kind of stuff. All of that, I track all of that, but opportunity health is really key to me because then, and when we use it at Contentful, we used a traffic light system with some notes. It's the oranges, the stuff that is not quite there, and the reds that I really pay a lot of attention to, because that tells me how much, where I should be devoting my time, but where I could be coaching my team, where I could be working with the AEs, the sales directors, the professional services team, etc. So that tells me a lot. So those 3, and on a purely individual team level, we used a tool called 15-5. So the number is 15 and the word 5, if you want to look that up. At the end of every week, it filled out, okay, what went well, what didn't go so well, what am I worried about, etc. And there was a number there, a morale. And I would look at that, and everyone, over time, there are going to be some dips and there are going to be some highs, and that's just life. But if someone's morale, someone could be doing extremely well, closing a lot of business, and be very frustrated. Someone could be closing very little business but be elated because they've learned something new. So this was what I would take to my one-on-ones.
Okay, fantastic. Kevin?
Let me unmute myself here. All good things. It's funny, right? Metrics are one of the most hotly debated amongst pre-sales. So I'm going to try to weasel out of this question to the degree I can. Thanks for going first, Nikhil. All great metrics, and definitely things to watch. One of the ones that I like to add on to that as well, I like to look at the ARR influence by my team members. So not just the wins, but how many deals are they getting engaged with? How large are those deals? What's the engagement? I think there's always that challenge of favoritism amongst sales teams and the SEs that they pair with, and so using that as an indicator of overall engagement and health. A couple other things too. MBOs can be helpful. One of my priorities with my teams is, I really want my teams to not only consume knowledge, but I want them to create and share knowledge as well. Especially in the startup world where I've found myself for the last, 4 or 5, 6 years, having my team, have an objective to create some sort of cross-functional knowledge material or content is really helpful, because again, we want to be seen as trusted advisors, not just to our customers, but our colleagues alike. So I'm going to take the metrics that Akil gave us and also kind of sprinkle in. I think that for new leaders out there, that's an option as well, a way that you can measure the progress of your team contributing and up-leveling the entire organization, as well as their peers. So, and again, I'm wheezing out of the rest of the metrics.
No, that's okay. No, that's great. That's really helpful. I mean, I'll chime in here as well. And I think for DocuSign, it's a little unique in the sense that everyone in the world is a customer. So great problem to have for us. But from a pre-sales organization, we don't necessarily need to attach into every sales motion. And so we really hone where we're attaching in, and when we're attaching in, what is the close rate multiplier effect and deal size multiplier effect that we're having on the business. And then we're trying to really focus our team oftentimes up and to the right to be working on the most strategic business. So for us, those are definitely two. We've recently implemented Vivid, which has given us like a whole new set of data to look at, and we're getting a lot more data now around looking at utilization and hours logged, activities logged, and how that ties back to revenue, which has been some very interesting data as well, more in the sense of helping us hone where we're seeing the biggest return on investment and being able to drive the resources into those opportunities. So great. Okay, Dasha, one last question. Are we good for one last question? I'd love to ask Kevin one more, and then we could open it up for Q&A, or do we want to just jump right to Q&A?
Go ahead. You still have a few minutes, so
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Kevin, I love that you wanted to share about this one, and I think it's top of mind for all of us, some more than others. But love to hear from you how you handle imposter syndrome as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Look, I think that really the most important thing with regards to imposter syndrome is to acknowledge it. Acknowledge that it exists. It happens to all of us. It doesn't matter if you're a new leader or a seasoned leader. The imposter syndrome will strike at some point or another. So, just kind of acknowledge the monster in the closet. It's out there, right? And I think the next phase of that, and definitely I find myself leaning into this, is embrace it. Embrace the imposter syndrome feeling. Some days you're going to be riding the wave high and you're going to feel like, I am nailing this. This is great. And then other days you're going to hit that trough, that valley of despair, if you will, where the imposter syndrome kicks in. And you know what? That's okay. That's, in my mind, that's healthy. What that means is you're challenging yourself. You're striving, and that up, down, that peak and valley. It's just, that's part of it. That is part of continual growth as a leader, as an individual, and just know it's okay. It's healthy. And you get through it, you come out stronger on the other side, and you continue to challenge yourself more. So, that's my thoughts on imposter syndrome. I'm a fan of it. Don't love it, but I'm a fan of it because I know
Right.
it means I'm growing.
I
Yeah.
think that's such a great reframe on it. I mean, I love that, right? Like it's almost like when you are in it doing your job, you're going to have these feelings. And to your point, you don't want to, can't ride the highs too high or the lows too low. So I think that's fantastic. Great.
Yeah. Fantastic.
All right, Sasha, we'll turn it back over to you if there's any Q&A,
Yes, we actually have a
or
couple
we want to
great
move into
ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So first question is, how can we proactively support the well-being of our SEs and prevent burnout, especially considering the high pressure nature of the role?
You're absolutely right. Burnout is real. It's tough. We're in a high stress environment, and it feels like many people that I talk to, since have so much more remote work these days, it feels like the Slack messages are coming in constantly, and we're reaching outreach to. Again, I think it really goes back to that individual relationship, working with those team members to understand deeply where they're at, building that trust so they feel confident coming and saying, look, yeah, I'm burned out. I'm struggling here. And then making sure that they know that they're supported, right? How are ways that we can support those team members? Can I help remove some work from your plate? Do you need some time away? How can we manage that stress? And it's just making sure that they know they have a partner in their leader. And yeah, I'll probably continue to ramble here, but it really is.
No, I mean, I'll try and make I mean, I think you're right, right? Like have a good support system, like go to your manager and be transparent with here's what I've got on my plate, like all day, all week. Like, can you help me figure out how I can offload some of this? And I've even done this with other peers where we'll share with each other, like, here's what I'm like engaging in on a regular basis, like get a fresh set of eyes to say, hey, could those meetings be 15 minutes? Could those hour one-on-ones be 30 minutes every other week instead of weekly? Like usually there's some things you can do to kind of help gate your time. And then of course, the old trick in the book, like put some time in your calendar. That's a meeting for you to just have that moment to catch up and, get work done or take a walk, whatever you might need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, Leah. And kind of going back to the point that you made about Simon Sinek and doing small things consistently, that builds trust, right? Life happens around us. The people who have maybe another kid, people who lose a family member, there might be health issues, either their own personal health issues, or one of their loved ones has things. We know about 5% maybe of what's going on in someone's life, and that is if they are willing to share, really. So I think, as Kevin mentioned and as you mentioned, Leah, just knowing that there's this partner. I've had people on my team where I've seen them struggle, or I've seen them, or they've just kind of tried to plow through, but you could just tell that they're suffering. So that's the great thing about a team, is that people will step in for each other. So if maybe on a particular day you're dealing with some stuff, but you can only do things asynchronously, you have the time and maybe the mental bandwidth to work on an RFP, if anyone actually ever wants to work on an RFP. but maybe you can't take another client call, then someone steps in. And I think this is the power of a great team, great individuals working together. And it's your job as a manager to really to make that happen.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, we have another question here. Did you face any pushback from your teams on them being measured by any of those key metrics?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think a lot of companies, a lot of SE orgs fall into this trap of celebrating only the successes, right? And how is success measured? ACV, ARR, whatever it is, those leaderboards every single week. and there's some people who just work in very rich patches, and there are people who are equally good SEs but don't work in such rich patches, and they'll never find themselves up there. And I think but how do you as a leader then work on kind of on harnessing their talents, making sure that the smaller wins are also celebrated? Something that if your average deal size is, let's say, 100K, but someone's closed a 40K deal, but that's a very strategic deal, it is that leader's duty to say, to celebrate that, or that this means something to someone who's just joined the team. It's the first win. It means something, right? It may not be the most impressive number there. So I've seen this a lot, and spoken to leaders in other companies. Unfortunately, we tend to celebrate only the big ticket wins. They should be celebrated, but they shouldn't be the only ones that are celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might lead into the next question that we have here. Can you share specific ways in which we can motivate and inspire our SEs to excel in their roles and continue to grow professionally?
Question.
Yeah, Kelly, you look like you were going to answer it. So
I know. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of, because people are motivated by different things, right? I've had some very fantastic commercially driven SEs. They are all about closing the deal, winning it. They're excited about things like President's Club and whatnot. Whereas I've had other SEs that are they want to be the maven. They want to be the person that learns all about the thing, and they drive the customer to that aha moment. And these are both, valuable if it gets us where we want to go. I do go back to what Akil was saying about celebrating the wins and demonstrating the impact that we're having on the organization. Maybe that's what I'll come down to, is just making sure that we're really elevating the impact, because it can feel very rote at times, where we're, okay, I'm logging in, I'm doing a demo, I'm having a conversation, I'm capturing my notes in Salesforce, and rinse, repeat. And so I think it's really important to celebrate those wins and to elevate the impact that we're having. Elevate the impact that we're having on our customers too. Those experiences, what we're enabling them to do, and just reiterating, like, hey, this is only possible because you're here. Yeah. So I'll pause there before I ramble on anymore. I don't know if the rest of the team have anything to add on to that.
No, I agree with both. Again, I also think, right, making sure, we're promoting the wins, large and small, the projects, the efforts the team's making, having alignment with our peers in the field organization, and making sure there's the equal recognition there is always incredibly important as well. And obviously tying it all back to how we help the customer. But it does even go back to what we were talking about in the beginning. Some people are motivated by different things. And so being able to know those different levers and how to pull them as a leader is really, really helpful for the broader team.